So let's get right into it. This is a story all about power, about trauma, but also about the incredible force of one single quiet act. We're going to look at how a kingdom, a whole empire built on an iron fist, can be shaken right to its core. And not by some huge army, but by something, well, something much smaller. A simple, unexpected challenge to everything it stands for. Now, to really get this story, you've got to understand the place itself. Ashara, well, it's not some gentle, peaceful kingdom. Nope. It's a place that was basically forged in harshness. The landscape itself is described as hostile, like it's out to get you. The source material even says that the land itself remembered blood. I mean, wow, that paints a picture, doesn't it? It tells us that fear isn't just a tactic the king uses. It's literally in the ground, in the very soil of the kingdom. So this whole culture of fear, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Oh no, it was designed. It was engineered. And we need to meet the architect of this empire of dread, King Varun III. You know, a ruler's reputation is all about how people see them, right? And Varun, well, he was no different. If you obeyed him, if you kept your head down, you might call his brutality justice. But for those who survived his punishments, to them, he was Varun the merciless. And for pretty much everyone else, he was just Varun the cruel. These aren't just names, you see. They're like a map of the terror he spread. But this kind of cruelty, it doesn't just come from nowhere. There's a reason. When he was just 16 years old, Varun watched his own father get assassinated. And not by some foreign enemy, but by the king's most trusted counsel. I mean, can you even imagine that? Watching the very people sworn to protect your family turn on them and kill them. That one single horrific event, it defined everything that came next. And that trauma right there, it became his entire philosophy. It's like he burned this brutal lesson into his soul. Mercy is weakness, and trust will get you killed. Period. And he takes this truth and applies it to his whole kingdom. A thief, they lose a hand. Rebels, their entire village is wiped out. It's absolutely brutal, yes. But, and this is the twisted part, through this iron-fisted rule, the kingdom finds a grim kind of stability. It's peace through terror. But here's the thing about systems. No matter how rigid and perfect they seem, they always face a challenge they weren't designed for. And in this story, that challenge comes in the form of someone who is the king's complete polar opposite. So let's meet Arev. He's basically a nobody in this huge, terrifying palace. Just a 17-year-old kid, an orphan, doing the most thankless jobs you can think of, polishing armor, carrying water. But there's this one critical detail about him, and it's a detail that makes him a total alien in this world of fear. Despite everything, despite his life, he never learned to hate. And right there, you can see the conflict brewing. It's brilliant. On one side, you've got King Varun. His power comes from fear. He believes mercy is a fatal mistake. Then, on the other side, you have Arav. And his actions, they're driven by something so simple, just pure, uncalculated compassion. You can just feel it, right? It's an ideological collision, and it's about to happen. And that collision, it happens in the most unexpected way. It all hinges on one single moment, a moment that starts to unravel absolutely everything. Okay, so picture this. The setting is, well, it couldn't be more symbolic. We're in the Hall of Judgments. This is a place literally stained with blood from executions. And right in the middle of this chamber of death, Arav finds this tiny, panicked life, a little sparrow, trapped and just desperate to get out. So Arav helps the little bird escape. And just as he does, a voice cuts through the silence. It's the king. And his question, it's not, hey, what's up? No. It's an accusation. Why did you stop your work? See, in Varun's kingdom, duty is everything. You don't just stop what you're doing. That's a punishable offense. You can just feel the tension in the air. It's immense. And Arav's answer, it's only 2 words. But in this hall, to this king, it is the most dangerous, the most defiant answer he could possibly give. He says, for mercy. He doesn't make up an excuse. He doesn't lie. He names the one thing, the one idea that the king hates more than anything. He's standing up for an ideal that Varun has spent his whole life trying to crush. And just so you understand how heavy this moment is, let me give you a number, 23. That's how many men King Varun executed in that exact same room just the day before. So here's Arav talking about mercy to a man who showed zero mercy to 24 other people. The king's response is just chilling. He looks at Arav and says, "Do you know how many begged?" He doesn't ask if they begged. He asks how many. It's like begging for your life is just a statistic to him, a totally meaningless part of the process. He's trying to show Arav just how pointless his words are. And then something happens that nobody, and I mean nobody, could have predicted. Instead of ordering an execution, the king gives a new command. He orders Arav to serve in his private chambers. Now let's be clear, this is not a promotion. It's a sentence. But it's also the very first crack we see in the king's cold, predictable logic. Something about this kid's simple, maybe even foolish courage, it got to him. It intrigued him. So, this bizarre decision, it brings these two into close contact. And that changes everything. But not for the servant, for the king. This is where we start to see a real crack in his armor. All of a sudden, Arav is behind the curtain. He's not just seeing the king anymore, he's seeing the man. He sees the scars on his body, he hears him crying out from nightmares, he sees these long, silent, haunted moments. He's seeing the true cost of Varun's philosophy, the personal torment that fuels the throne. And in this new, kind of unsettling quiet between them, the king starts doing something he never, ever does. He asks questions. I don't mean commands disguised as questions. I mean real, genuine questions. He starts with his biggest one. Can fear keep a kingdom alive? For the first time, maybe ever, he's actually wondering if his whole foundation of fear can even last. Then he looks at Arav, this kid who has seen the absolute worst of this kingdom and is somehow still good. And he asks another question. Does innocence survive power? You see, he's not really asking about Arav. He's asking about himself. He's asking if his own power destroyed whatever innocence he once had. It's like Arav has become a mirror, and the king is being forced to look at the man he's become. So these questions, they aren't just passing thoughts. They're like tremors before an earthquake. And now, the king's entire worldview, it starts to completely fall apart. And this is the heart of it all. This is the big one. The king finally connects his entire philosophy of cruelty back to where it all started, the trauma of his father's murder. And he asks the ultimate question, the one that's been haunting him his whole life. If I had shown mercy once, would my father still be alive? He's asking, was all this brutality even necessary? Was this really the only way to survive? And Arav's response, it's just devastatingly simple but so profound. He doesn't get into an argument about the past. He just points out the biggest flaw in the king's logic for the future. He says, but if no one ever shows mercy, then death never ends. He's showing the king that his system isn't a solution at all. It's just a cycle of violence that feeds itself over and over. If there's never any mercy, the killing can never stop. And the king, he doesn't explode with anger. He doesn't have Arav executed. He just sends him away. And the story ends on this really powerful, quiet note. For the first time in years, King Varun did not sleep. He couldn't. Everything he built his life on, his rule, his entire identity, it was all just shattered by a few simple words from a servant boy. And so, that leaves us with this big question, doesn't it? The story doesn't tie it all up in a neat bow for us, but it forces us to think. It makes us wonder, can a single act of compassion really take down an entire empire of fear? It suggests that even the strongest systems, the most deeply held beliefs, might have one tiny vulnerable spot. And sometimes all it takes to break them open is one small, seemingly insignificant act of mercy.